Hi there, I'm Cheryl Paul with Instill Yoga Therapy. One of the most common complaints that I get from people is pain in the non-dominant shoulder after practicing vinyasa style yoga for a while. It of course happens in the dominant shoulder as well, but I think I get more complaints about non-dominant. So we're going to look at why that might happen in the non-dominant arm today. So the non-dominant arm, the shoulder blade tends to be retracted and downwardly rotated all the time, as though if you were to do that and think about what you would need to do to hold yourself back in space, that's kind of where that non-dominant shoulder blade lives. So because of that, when you're trying to get shoulder mobility in weight bearing, you tend to overuse the elbows, so there's strain through the wrist, through the rotator cuff, tennis elbow sometimes comes up, and also the complaint of tightness across the front into the neck, and then a very specific point behind the shoulder blade that people can almost feel when they're breathing. It feels like it's just irritating all the time. So the first thing that you can address is just good function for that shoulder. So how do we get the scapula to start to move in the way that it's not used to moving? And that is by getting the serratus anterior to work. So when we're starting this, I want you to think about a little bit of thoracic flexion. So we tend to kind of hold ourselves through the mid-back back as though we're holding the shoulders back for the proper posture. So before we even get started, you're going to think about kind of melting the collarbones down, and this one spot in your back where it gets tight and kind of in a break, you're going to think about bringing that back into your back hand and your collarbones down into your forward hand. So you have a little bit of rounding, and you're going to try to keep that as we move the shoulder. So then when we're teaching that shoulder to protract, I find it's helpful to have just a mental image of the bottom edge of the shoulder blade attached to the elbow, so we're shortening the chain, there's less to think about. You're going to grab the bottom edge of your shoulder blade so you can feel that big flat bone there. And you're going to think about taking it away from the spine without taking your, or losing that thoracic flexion. So that might mean that you actually bend the elbow and push the elbow away from the shoulder blade. You can also exaggerate a roll forward of the arm, and as though you're going to reach through the thumb, and sometimes that will get the slide going. Oh, okay, now I get it. Okay. So then this first part of just protraction. And then we want to think about upward rotation. So if you're protracted and then start to reach up, and actually sometimes this way, it helps to think about the up going from the side up and over. And you should feel again the blade moving under your hand, not this. So we'll tend to extend the head back and bring the shoulder to the ear. So make sure you're only going as far as that blade is upwardly rotating. So that's the other range of motion. So then you're protracting, upwardly rotating. Okay. When you bring that into a weight-bearing position, the same idea applies. You want that thoracic flexion, so you're not here. You're a little bit rounded through the upper back, and that should feel like less stress on the trapezius muscles. If you want to have a little bend, that arm or elbow might automatically want to straighten, so think about a little bend, and then from the bottom of the shoulder blade as though you're pushing the elbow away. Try that a couple times, and think about always a little bit dropping that same side hip toward the ground and pushing that knee into the ground. So it will help to give you some support. And then you can find that knee into the ground, hip dropped, and start to reach as though you're reaching for something forward. So you're going to feel the protraction, and then you're going to feel that upward rotation. And you can actually start to reach toward the other, in the direction of the other arm. And try that a few times and see if you can get the blade moving in this position. The other piece we'll look at is the push and pull. So when you're starting to load, meaning moving yourself down, you want to be able to utilize some more muscles. Okay? So if I pull the heels of my hands back toward my knees, you'll feel the whole core respond, and you're trying not to get shoulders to come up toward the ears. So just pull, see what that feels like, and then the opposite direction you're going to push. And then pull, and then push. And make sure this isn't you going up and down through the back. That's one of the problems that limits the shoulder's ability to be mobile. So again, thoracic flexion, pull the heels of the hands back, push them away. And then when you're coming into the lowering, shoulders are over the wrists more or less, and then the pull becomes an elbow bend to bring you forward, and the push becomes the straightening of the elbows to bring you back up. And again, mind what's going on in your mid-back. Pull, push. It's okay if your elbows go out to the side, you don't have to keep them pinned. Pull, push. And then maybe once that gets strong, this will translate into a straight leg position. Again, thoracic flexion, pull, push. And you'll find that chaturanga suddenly becomes a lot harder for your arms. All right, have fun with that. Let me know if you have any questions come up, if it works, if it doesn't work. I'd love to hear your comments. Thanks again. It's Cheryl Paul at Instill Yoga Therapy.